Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager with you. I don't comment almost ever on the private lives of public figures, even when there are raunchy stories out there. I just don't. I choose stories to talk about, issues to talk about, based, one, on significance, and two, on interest. Raunchy stories have interest, but no significance. So I don't bother with them. This is not a raunchy story, but it is a private thing that was done. But it is so wrong that I have to comment on it. Nancy Pelosi getting a haircut and blow dry and everything, no mask on. Now, by the way, you see the difference between her and me. Here you go. I go to, I illegally get haircuts, proudly, because of the contempt I have for the mediocrity with power known as Gavin Newsom, a despicable human being who has no care for the average person living in his state. He has contempt for the average citizen, as all Democrats do. They use you. The left uses people. There's never been an instance where it has not been true. Not liberals, leftists. Liberals are naive, weak, but they're not cruel. The difference between Nancy Pelosi and me is very simple. I get a haircut and announce it. Proudly announce it. I will not be a peon to the fool with power. I don't even know why he has the power. I am stunned that America allows a governor to tell people how to live their lives the way he does. I'm stunned. This is not the land of the free and the home of the brave that I grew up in. I was speaking to my 95-year-old aunt in a nursing home, still no visitors, half a year in Florida. And she's a remarkable woman. Just a remarkable woman, my Aunt Chippy. And she was saying to me how she doesn't recognize this country. I mean, I don't think she hears my show. And she was reciting almost verbatim things that I have said. And she even said, "What happened to the land of the free and the home of the brave?" You don't have to be 95 to remember when that was the case in the United States. The deterioration of California under left-wing rule, from the freest, happiest, most optimistic, most opportunity-giving state to the depressed, fecal matter ridden state that it is, and people vote for more fecal matter. That's what you do if you vote Democrat. So she gets a haircut and styling of her hair, and she's supportive. See, that's the difference. I have contempt and anger at these rules, these moronic, life-suppressing rules in the state of California. She adulates them and then violates them. And then they make up some excuse. Well, did you see that? I mean, did you read? It wasn't like, look, she can't say I was wrong, because then if she was wrong, she's wrong in supporting it, right? And you know what? First of all, I wonder, is this covered at all outside of the conservative media? Is it? Does the New York Times have a piece on it? Does the LA Times? Nothing in the LA Times? Look, the LA Times is so awful. It's unworthy of the word newspaper. It's a left-wing rag sheet. Its deterioration has been dramatic too. But remember, the left ruins, destroys everything it touches. Can't find a thing? Yeah. See, the media lie by omission, as I always tell you, as much as they do by commission. This is what it's doing. What does the LA Times say here? What is this? Coronavirus herd immunity is just another way to say let people die. That's the left-wing position. Yes, they want a lockdown for when it was first said by Ezekiel Emanuel, one of the science advisors to Joe Biden. Well, we're going to just have to lock down until we get a vaccine. I mean, remember how most of us thought this guy is out of his mind. That's the end of the economy as we know it. God, the combination of stupidity and cowardice and meanness. Let people die. Why don't they say that about allowing cars on the road? Anyone who allows cars on the road has the attitude, let people die. No, I don't remember that. No, because they charge every Republican with let people die. Yes, that is correct. That is the position. Let people die. What is your choice? Let people commit. So the left-wing position is let people commit suicide. Let people abuse children. Let children lose a year of their lives. Let people riot because they have nothing else to do with their lives, which they love. There's no doubt in my mind in their hearts they support the riots. This is the LA Times editorial. So they just want more lockdown. Anybody at the LA Times lose their job because of the lockdown? Hard to imagine. At least in the top echelons. Maybe some, poor courier, I don't know. Yes, everybody in the LA Times in danger of losing their job, but not because of the lockdown. Because so few people read it. I told you yesterday, I used to write for it regularly. There was even a time when the LA Times, believe it or not, on its opinion page would have on the right side of the page, column right, on the left side of the page, column left. That man was fired. And I used to often write the column right. There is no, just like in the New York Times, there is no differing with leftism on the opinion pages. There's no differing with leftism on the news pages. My piece got a lot of play, and a lot of places reprinted it, that the lockdown has gone from mistake to crime. The depressing part is that Americans have so accepted it. A mass disobedience would, I guess, be the only thing possible. But people are afraid. So, for example, if you do own a hair salon and open, you could lose your license, and that's permanent. But that's what happens when you have so much power in government. That is why the founders were so scared of big government. That was their biggest fear. Big government. They feared basically two things: big government and the loss of virtue among the American people, because a democracy is only as good as its humans in it. What is it? It's a republic if you can keep it, said Benjamin Franklin. I don't know if we'll keep it. Well, this election will be certainly one example of whether or not we will keep it. So they have another one. Steroids can help sick corona patients. Yes, I know. You want to know who let people die? It's the opponents of hydroxychloroquine and zinc. They're the people. That's the crowd of let people die. Better that you die than President Trump be right. That is the left's attitude. And a vast number of doctors have followed by compromising medicine because they loathe the president, or because the average doctor. I've never said this. I am more knowledgeable about hydroxychloroquine and zinc than the average doctor. I have kept up with more studies. How many of them know that about the studies that have affirmed its use, and the lack of zinc in almost every study that said it didn't do anything?
Dear members of the entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
We know that you're more famous than any of us.
Well, most of us.
I'm mad.
Distressed. Alarmed.
Infuriated.
It's your job to be creative.
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 And yet, how many of these lame-ass videos have you made that look exactly like this?
Like this.
Like this.
You entertain us.
It's literally your whole job.
Here's what we ask.
No. Here's what we demand.
That you reject anything that is anti-original,
Anti-interesting,
Anti-convincing.
We demand that you try harder.
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 If you do, we'll be with you.
But if not, we'll continue to not care
About anything.
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 You have to say.
Signed, the majority.
The majority.
The majority.
Of the American people.
And we're done, because that's a reasonable amount of time.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Eric Holder once gave a speech in which he talked about pernicious racism. He said the kind of racism that was shown by Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Clippers. You might remember he was taped by his then girlfriend making all sorts of nasty comments about black people. He never said, by the way, the N-word, although she tried to get him to say it. She did everything but hold up cue cards to get him to say it, and he still didn't say it. Anyway, Eric Holder said, people like that, blatant racists, we deal with them. It's the pernicious stuff that we ought to be concerned about. And he gave 3 examples, one of which was the fact that black criminal defendants get longer sentences for a same crime committed by a white criminal defendant. And as I said and as I wrote, this is true. What Eric Holder didn't say is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission that concluded that blacks do get longer sentences said the reason they got them was for legitimate factors. Most notably, judges will look at your arrest record when determining what your sentence is. And the average black criminal has a longer record than the average white criminal. Therefore, the average black criminal gets a longer sentence than does the average white criminal. I'm sorry. I would urge you to Google Larry Elder, Eric Holder, sentencing discrepancy, U.S. Sentencing Commission, or something like that, and you'll be able to get the article. I wrote an article about each of the 3 examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The biggest story of the week in terms of national security. It looked like a nuclear detonation in Beirut, in the port, in the docks there. I always say, first things first, with anything coming out of that region, especially the benighted region of Lebanon, most initial reports are fallacious. You got to wait and see. Fireworks this, fireworks that. How do you deal with breaking massive stories like that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the way a professional analyst does with that is you take the facts when you have, as you get them in, and you try to put context around them and say, does this kind of pass the common sense test? So hundreds of deaths, thousands and thousands of casualties, about $15 billion.
Hi. Hi, everybody. The Nancy Pelosi story really irks me. That the Democrats get away with what they do is because the left gets away with it because the press doesn't care. It's quite remarkable. The gulf between us is so great, and that is between the left and the rest of us is so great that I don't even understand them. What goes on? How does Nancy Pelosi tell people to support the ruination of the hair salon business and then do it herself? What is in her mind? Wouldn't you, Alan, have a voice in you? I know this isn't right, but, okay. So what, they think, they don't think, they know they're better than, it's a class, the irony is it's a class issue. Much of leftism is a class issue. We are better than others. At the New York Times, they believe they are morally superior. Paul Krugman and Thomas Friedman and Timothy Egan and Charles Blow and the editors of the New York Times, they believe we are the elite. Who is this Donald Trump? A businessman, a brash businessman, to have all that power. We should have that power. This is something that I've known for a long time because it was explained to me. Professors are on the left in part out of anger that they don't have power. What is the saying? There's so much internecine fighting among professors because there's so little to fight over. They have power. I mean, they have the power to influence a generation. That's a lot of power. But they want political power. They want to be venerated in society. The Donald Trumps, we are the deplorables, those of us who do not genuflect before a PhD. They are the enlightened. That's their view. So Nancy Pelosi does not believe that the rules that apply to Joe Smith apply to her. She is a better, finer human being than the people she rules. That is their belief. As I said, Dennis Prager, go for haircuts. I proudly violate Gavin Newsom's despicable, life-crushing, irrational laws. With pride. But she agrees with them. She supports them and then violates them. And the price she will pay, I don't call it hypocrisy because hypocrisy is so lame compared to what she is doing. That's why. It doesn't come close. And there's no price. Remember, being on the left means never having to say you're sorry. I wonder if it even bothers the leftists in California that she did it. What do you think? What does the average leftist think? Too bad they caught her. I guess that's what they think. Brett in Richmond, Virginia. Hello.
Hey, Dennis.
Yes.
Hey, how you doing? I wanted to talk about the hypocrisy that's going on. And I know you just mentioned it's not hypocrisy, but now that I have you on the line, I heard about you, and I'm from watching Adam Carolla, his documentary. Are you guys friends in real life?
Oh yeah, we're very close. It's a very special relationship. I adore that man.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But he tweeted yesterday about how it's okay if elderly people like you die. So I was wondering
Did he mention me by name?
Well, I was wondering if your friend, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if you die.
Okay, I'd like to see the tweet, and I will. It is inconceivable to me that he doesn't care if a 70-year-old dies, or for that matter, an 80-year-old. It is inconceivable. So I would have to see the tweet, but I will tell you my position if I indeed fit that category. If it's my job to take care of myself. It is not a 5-year-old's job not to go to school so that I can do whatever I want. I will do whatever I want. It's a free country. If I want to take risks, do we stop people from bungee jumping? Do we stop people from hang gliding? Do we stop people from riding motorcycles? The rate of injury and death in riding a motorcycle, I'm not talking about a dirt bike, is extremely high. I have no doubt that if I saw the tweet, I would probably agree with it. You see, yeah, exactly. I mean, you're ruining America so that I can have more of a guarantee of not getting COVID? I don't want you to ruin America. Do you know that the irony is it's the older people who are far more resistant? You know why? Because we grew up in a free country. The contempt that people have for freedom, it's contempt. The only value in life is safety. That's it. It's the only value. Remember, I said for years, health über alles. Way, decades before this pandemic. Health über alles. I take hydroxychloroquine every week and zinc every day. All right? I take care of myself. I take care of my immune system. And I work out. And if I die, I die. All right? That's the way it works in life. The purpose of life is not to avoid death. That is not the purpose of life. It is the purposeless who think that. And that is the left. They are purposeless. That's why they go left. It gives them purpose. Their inner core is empty, devoid of meaning. They are soulless. Leftism gives them meaning. The purpose of life is not to live. The purpose of life is to live fully. Okay? God bless Adam Carolla and his tweets.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
I wrote an article about each of the three examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them was the push for voter ID around the country. Eric Holder said that was pernicious racism. Never mind that poll after poll after poll shows that majority of black voters also support photo ID. The other example of pernicious racism that Eric Holder gave is the fact that black boys are disproportionately kicked out of schools when you look at their percentage of that given school's population. And again, that's also true. I mentioned that some years ago, Jesse Jackson filed a lawsuit against Decatur, Illinois, the school board of Decatur, Illinois, because that school board had kicked out a bunch of black kids who were fighting after a football game. In comes Jesse Jackson. He files a lawsuit accusing the school board of racism. They defended themselves by noting that around the country, no matter the racial composition of the school board, no matter the race of the principal, no matter the race of the teacher involved, black boys were kicked out disproportionately compared to their percentage in the student body, compared to other kids at the school. The judge dismissed the lawsuit. Bye-bye, Jesse Jackson. And let me tell you something. Decatur elementary school kids, after Jesse Jackson came in then and made that big stink, teachers said that black kids began saying, "Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse." Watch out, I'm going to call Jesse Jackson. You can't say that to me. I'm going to call Jesse. I'm not kidding. Look it up. This is the damage being done by this kind of race card hustling.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We have to talk about the jobs figures that are out, beating all market expectations. What is your interpretation of the almost 1.8 million jobs added in just July?
That we're recovering despite lawmakers who don't want to see us succeed. And I hate to say that because to me, Seb, politics should not, economics should not be political. In other words, we should be able to all look at our economy and say we want what's best for our economy. We want jobs for American workers. We want success for American workers. And that should be divorced entirely from who's going to win in November. But unfortunately, too many people, politically motivated, look at our economy through the lens of politics. And thus, they want to make sure that their candidate is better positioned. And in their view, they would like to see, I hate to say it, again, America's economy really struggle, because then that makes all those socialist policies that they put forward suddenly more attractive. I mean, not to me, but they think that to more Americans it will be attractive. But here's the reality. 1.8 million jobs being added to the economy, far more than people thought, and that's despite this on-again, off-again shutdown thing, right? That's a total schizophrenia type of move from local lawmakers who can't figure out whether they should open or close. And we still succeeded in adding nearly 2 million jobs. So that tells you that if government would just get out of the way, people could do what they know how to do, and that's run a business and participate in a market economy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
How much time do you spend thinking about root causes of the public policy?
All right, everybody. Man who's been a guest on this show over the course of decades, actually, Michael Oren, among other things, former ambassador of Israel to the United States. And I'm going to review some things in the Middle East. By the way, this is a by the way, but it's an interesting one. He has a book of stories just out, fiction, and the subjects are quite remarkable, like an alien who doesn't want to visit Earth. I don't know where you came up with that one, but I love that idea. Michael Oren, how are you?
I'm great. It's called The Night Archer and Other Stories. 50 stories.
Yes.
Everyone completely different.
Yeah, clearly.
But yes, there's an alien who doesn't want to visit Earth.
I love that. I don't blame him, frankly. Anyway, he'd have to go into quarantine.
He looks at a printout of what human beings are like, and he has to decide, is this really worth it?
Yes, exactly. Where are you right now?
I am in Jaffa. I'm in beautiful Jaffa, overlooking the Mediterranean. And it's quiet. It's quiet and peaceful for the time being.
Well, I want to ask you about that, and I have no idea what your answers will be. I have been opposed to the lockdown from the beginning in the United States. I think Sweden did the only right thing. But we could talk about that later, because I know the Israeli economy has been hurt terribly. I have friends. I have a dear friend in the tourism guide business. He literally has no income.
He and about 750,000 other Israelis.
Yeah. Is there? I don't know your position on it, but I am curious. Is there a voice, or are there voices that question the lockdown in Israel, or is it fairly unanimous?
No, it's fairly unanimous that there should not be a lockdown.
Oh, really?
And
wait,
yeah, it's very different here. It's very different here. In the United States, the wearing of masks is a political statement. You know, you wear a mask and you're a Democrat. Is that true? You know, you don't wear a mask, you're against this. Here, it's a social statement. People wear masks for older people. It's a sign of weakness and vulnerability. And this is a very young country. We have the youngest population in any industrialized country in the world. We have the youngest population. People have babies here. People get married and have big families. So young people are more, immune. They're healthier. They get corona. They get sick. They don't necessarily get very sick. And so people are saying, okay, we understand that the vulnerable people have to take precautions, but we don't have to take precautions, and the entire society and our economy shouldn't have to pay the price for that.
Oh wow! But they don't have any clout.
Well, we had a lockdown for a certain period of time, and we lifted it. Maybe we lifted it a little bit too fast. We had a second wave, but I think right now after the second wave, people are saying, "Listen, as long as the hospital
yes, that should be the criterion.
Danger of collapse, we're not going to do this anymore."
All right. So what's the state? Is there or is there not a lockdown now?
There is no lockdown.
You can go into any store.
You can go into any store.
You can go into any restaurant.
You can go to any restaurant. They prefer to have the tables outside. You can go to any restaurant. It's all open.
Wait. They prefer or they have to? Can you?
No, they don't have to.
You can eat inside a restaurant.
You can indeed, and have very, very good food.
That I know. But there's no tourism.
There is no tourism because they're just beginning to open up. We've just had 600 Israeli tourists go to Greece. But no, there's no tourism now. And your friend, I understand his plight very well and his pain. There are many people, the entire tourism industry, the hotels, the bus drivers, the souvenirs, concession stands, everything. Tremendous blow. Zero income.
Okay, what's the story? How did it come about that the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, recognized Israel? How did that come about?
Well, it's going to shock you. In many ways, we have to thank President Obama. Why? Because he sought to bring Jews and Arabs closer together through peace. He brought Jews and Arabs closer, but not through peace, but through common opposition to his policies toward Iran. And the real impetus here was the need to form a common, open alliance against Iran and fight the Iran nuclear deal, which both Sunni Arab states like the UAE and Israel view as a strategic threat to us. I think there's also the
All
Arabs...
right, hold on. Give me the also in a moment. I'm speaking to Michael Oren, former U.S. Ambassador to Israel. Thank you, Barack Obama, for uniting Israelis and Arabs in opposition to your positions with regard to Iran. That's right. One of the rare examples of change looking good. Riduzone is an extraordinary product. It is completely natural in that it is composed of OEA, the molecule your body produces, your own body, to help you feel full faster. It's developed by doctors. It's got 2 patents. They have a 30-day guarantee of satisfaction. Riduzone. And if you use the promo code Dennis, you get 30% discount immediately and free shipping. Imagine that. Not feeling as hungry through natural means, eating less, burning more fat. RIDUZone.com, promo code Dennis.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you know what this will do to Second Amendment proponents all over the country? Here was her announcement. This is the New York Attorney General yesterday.
Altogether, there are 18 causes of action. And these actions violated multiple laws, including the laws governing the NRA's charitable status, false reporting on annual filings with my office and the IRS, improper expense documentation, improper wage reporting, improper income tax withholding, failure to make required excise tax reporting and payments, payments in excess of reasonable compensation to disqualified persons, and waste of NRA assets, amongst other offenses. For these years of fraud and misconduct, we are seeking an order to dissolve the NRA in its entirety.
The Wall Street Journal editorial board opines this: you have to smile at Letitia James's audacity. The suit claims to speak for millions of donors, but how does dissolving the nonprofit deliver relief or justice to gun rights donors or their cause? Of course, it's all politically driven. Everybody knows that. Letitia James knows it. She once called the NRA a terrorist organization. The death penalty remedy, the Wall Street Journal notes, is one hint that there might be some politics going on here.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
These Twitter accounts have lost thousands of followers. Brandon Stracker, the man who founded Walkaway, 3,000 Twitter followers gone. Deanna Lorraine, who ran against Nancy Pelosi, 8,000 followers disappeared. Parody account, Stonewall Jackson, 1776 Stonewall, 4,000 followers lost. Omar Navarro, 5,000 followers just vanished. And then congressional candidate Lauren Boebert, 1,500. Now, what's the linking aspect? Have a wild guess. What links all of these people? Not one of them is a Democrat. Not one of them is a leftist liberal.
Okie-doke. Hello? Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Just a quick reminder that if you would like phone service for an extremely low price, like $20 a month, unlimited text and unlimited talk, it's actually available. I thought it was so suspect because it was so cheap. I actually got a phone to test it, and it's fine. It's terrific. And you get 2 gigabytes of data. Just go on your dial pound 250, say the keyword Dennis Prager. It's Pure Talk USA. Pound 250 Dennis Prager. And Michael Oren, former former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. And I might add, you got me desirous of reading your book. I have to tell you, it's 50 different short stories on 50 different subjects.
51, but who's counting? The Night Archer.
The Night Archer.
Each one completely different. Completely different. We have ghost stories.
When did you? I have zero. I have zero ability to write fiction. I mean, truly, an inability. I could. It's like me running a marathon. Did you always know you had this in you?
Since I was 12.
Yeah,
I had no choice.
I had a feeling.
Stories come to me. I don't go to them.
I totally understand that. Theories come to me. There. People have built-in things. The Night Archer, and it's up at Amazon. And back to the, and it's also at DennisPrager.com. There you go, Michael Oren.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Sir. So
we're talking about thanking
UAE,
Obama for the trees.
and how Obama united Arabs and Jews against him and his policies supportive of Iran. What an irony! Yep. What an ultimate irony! But aside from that, what or who else is responsible for this momentous thing?
Well, President Trump and his team, of course. And they took one step, which I regard as absolutely pivotal, Dennis, and it was this. For decades, not years, decades, through several administrations, every time the Palestinians left the table, they got rewarded. Remember? They told Clinton no. They told Bush no. They told Obama no. And every time they left, they got more money. They got an embassy in Washington. They got 130 countries to recognize them as a state. So why go back to the negotiating table? It was insane. Everyone gave the Palestinians the veto power over the peace process, and they always use the veto because they actually don't even have the word yes in their vocabulary. It happened since the 1930s, never mind the 1980s, the 1990s. So this Trump team came along and said, okay, end of this. If you leave the table, guess what? Not only you're not going to get rewarded, you're going to get punished. We're going to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. We're going to cut off aid to UNRWA and other corrupt Palestinian agencies. And guess what? We're not going to sit around and wait for you guys to say yes. We're going to move ahead and make a bilateral relationship between Israel and Sunni Arab countries. This is what they did. And it seems like so elementary, doesn't it? Then it seems like, really, like no one ever thought of it.
God,
but you see how it works.
Of course.
And it's really, it's a game changer.
So who's next?
Well, we hope. And Jared Kushner did a tour around the region. Didn't come back very, optimistic about the possibility of Bahrain, Oman, the Saudis. My gut feeling tells me that if this relationship works that well, and there's no reason why it shouldn't, because we're wedding with two Ds, the most innovative country in the world, with one of the wealthiest countries in the world. People begin to prosper because of this relationship. The other countries are not going to be able to sit on the side, especially if the Palestinians continue to reject any overtures to peace. So I think it's a matter of time, but it will happen.
How is the reaction? Is there like this eruption of hatred in parts of the Arab world, like among Palestinians against the UAE?
Nah, a little bit. Not much. For years and years, I was always hearing if the United States casts a veto against an Israeli resolution in the UN, if America moves its embassy to Jerusalem, that the Arab world is going to go up in flames, that American embassies are going to go up in flames, there's going to be a third intifada. And every time, you know what happens? Exactly nothing.
That's right.
And this time, too, there are some condemnations, but I'm actually in Jaffa here. I'm in a mixed Arab-Jewish city. I went shopping with my Arab grocer today, Mohammed. Quiet.
That's fascinating. What about the annexation issue? Has it died? Is it in limbo? What's the story?
I think it's in abeyance for the time being. I mean, people want to show that there's a dividend for Israel, holding back on annexation. By the way, I never even used the term annexation. I don't think people can annex its own homeland. I prefer to say extending Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. And I think it's going to remain an issue in Israeli politics. Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be facing his biggest opposition is not from the left, it's from the right, from someone like Naftali Bennett, who has excoriated him for not proceeding with annexation. And that's a popular position among a great number of Israelis.
One final thing, I have very strong feelings about this, as you probably know, but I want to know your feelings. There is an increasing alienation among American Jews as they drift leftward, to an alienation from Israel, which is unprecedented in American Jewish history. Any comments?
They don't get it. In my mind, I've never told anybody this. You're the first one. Listen to this. I have an imaginary conversation in my mind between me and my great-grandfather living in a shtetl in Lithuania. And I say to my
Shtetl is a little
great-grandfather,
Jewish village, just let me explain.
a little Jewish village, okay? And I say to him, guess what? In another 100 years, there's going to be a Jewish state in the land of Israel. And it's going to have an army that's more than twice as big as the British and French armies combined. And it's going to have 5 or 6 of the leading universities in the world, and more Nobel Prizes per capita than any country in the world. It's going to be a world leader in innovation. I go on and on and on and on. But I'm going to say, we're going to have a problem with another people, the Palestinians, who, though we've offered them peace many times, keep on rejecting it. And because of that, a lot of American Jews, have a problem with that.
Yes. All right. Listen, I know you got to go. Everybody, we got his book up there, The Night Archer. Thank you, Michael Oren.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
How do people live without Jesus and the comfort of God? Because we are living in tough times. If people don't have that, I would think that there are people dying of fright in their apartments, in their houses right now, watching TV. It's one of the reasons you and I need to share the good news of Jesus Christ, because there's so many people, they don't even know it's possible to have the peace that you and I have.
When we, in the 60s, when the edicts began to coming from a group of individuals, the Supreme Court forgot one key element. There's a vast difference between the Supreme Court, a man-made court, and the supreme being. There's a vast difference. They forgot that, and they started passing the edicts. So we've been on a no God, no discipline, no love. We've been on that, and now it's turned to hatred. Would you have ever believed that the human race would slaughter each other? I mean, murder each other at this rate in our major cities in the United States of America. Eric, I'm looking at it thinking, come on, whatever happened to love, joy, and peace and patience and peace of mind? Come on. But it's a hard sell. So Eric, it has to be satanic versus godly. It has to be the old adage, the difference between good and evil.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Here was civil rights lawyer Leo Terrell last night on Fox News.
Joe Biden is unfit to be president, and Joe Biden is a racist. Joe Biden has the mindset of a plantation owner. He thinks he knows how every black person thinks, how we walk, what we should eat. Joe Biden doesn't understand that black people are individuals. Condoleezza Rice and Al Sharpton are different individuals. We have a different mindset. And what the Democrats will do is they'll roll out Jim Kleinberg, and he say it's okay. Jim Kleinberg doesn't speak for me or Larry or black America. No one black person speaks for black America. And CNN and MSNBC, they wouldn't cover this today. Donald Trump is absolutely right. Joe Biden insulted every black American today, and he should not be president. He is the racist. What is so amazing to me is that they're going
The Beach Boys. California was once the beacon of hope, happiness, freedom, and then the left took over. It's a depressed state. Literally depressed. No, I mean literally, as people are walking around depressed. Gavin Newsom is one of the lowlifes of political history. The damage that he has done to people's lives, it is almost not paralleled in American history of an American damaging so many people's lives as this nothing who's the governor. You know that he and his wife, San Francisco Chronicle reported 2 years ago, he and his wife pick up their dog poop with a bag with Donald Trump's face on it. This is the level of governor, and he won't call his wife his wife. He's too woke, calls her partner. She's the first partner. The left is disgusting. Gavin Newsom is on the left. But that's it. They outdo one another for damage. And people vote for them. That's the amazing thing. People vote for Democrats. I could cry, actually, because I love this country. Vote for people who wish to destroy this country. You'll get more money. You do. That's the way it is. Leonard in Spring, Texas. Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Okay, thank you.
So, like I told you, my name is Leonard Lazar. I'm a former Democrat, 71 years old, black male. So, I voted for President Trump in the last election because I realized that Democrats were full of lies. That they becoming the party of Jim Jones of Jonestown, Guyana.
That's a
cult. They left America.
It's like a cult.
They left America because of racism, and just like the people in Guyana, I drank the Kool-Aid. Of course, it's not poisonous now, but I did drink the Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
So
here's my question. Here is my question, and I salute you, my friend. How many other blacks feel as you do?
Okay, in my family, I'm on an island by myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even my wife is not with me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that hard to break? So I've pretty much been a Democrat all my life. So I know the thinking. I know the
yes,
inside
you certainly
thinking.
do. Well, we need people like you. There is a Blexit movement, black exit from the Democrats. May it prosper.
Dear members of the entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
We know that you're more famous than any of us.
Well, most of us.
I'm mad.
Distressed. Alarmed.
Infuriated.
It's your job to be creative.
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 And yet, how many of these lame-ass videos have you made that look exactly like this?
Like this.
Like this.
You entertain us.
It's literally your whole job.
Here's what we ask.
No. Here's what we demand.
That you reject anything that is anti-original,
anti-interesting,
anti-convincing.
We demand that you try harder.
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 If you do, we'll be with you.
But if not, we'll continue to not care.
About anything.
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 You have to say.
Signed, the majority.
The majority.
The majority.
Of the American people.
And we're done, because that's a reasonable amount of time.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Eric Holder once gave a speech in which he talked about pernicious racism. He said the kind of racism that was shown by Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Clippers. You might remember he was taped by his then girlfriend making all sorts of nasty comments about black people. He never said, by the way, the N-word, although she tried to get him to say it. She did everything but hold up cue cards to get him to say it, and he still didn't say it. Anyway, Eric Holder said, people like that, blatant racists, we deal with them. It's the pernicious stuff that we ought to be concerned about. And he gave 3 examples, one of which was the fact that black criminal defendants get longer sentences for a same crime committed by a white criminal defendant. And as I said and as I wrote, this is true. What Eric Holder didn't say is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission that concluded that blacks do get longer sentences said the reason they got them was for legitimate factors. Most notably, judges will look at your arrest record when determining what your sentence is. And the average black criminal has a longer record than the average white criminal. Therefore, the average black criminal gets a longer sentence than does the average white criminal. I'm sorry. I would urge you to Google Larry Elder, Eric Holder, sentencing discrepancy, U.S. Sentencing Commission, or something like that, and you'll be able to get the article. I wrote an article about each of the three examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The biggest story of the week in terms of national security. It looked like a nuclear detonation in Beirut, in the port, in the docks there. I always say, first things first, with anything coming out of that region, especially the benighted region of Lebanon, most initial reports are fallacious. You got to wait and see. Fireworks this, fireworks that. How do you deal with breaking massive stories like that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the way a professional analyst does with that is you take the facts when you have, as you get them in, and you try to put context around them and say, does this kind of pass the common sense test? So hundreds of deaths, thousands and thousands of casualties, about $15 billion in damage. If you think of
and tens of thousands homeless.
That's right. If you think of the Murrah office building
in Oklahoma, which
was actually a bomb made out of ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
But it's highly combustible. So if you put it, you can make a bomb out of it. 1,000 times more powerful than that. So, so totally consistent with that kind of explosion. And apparently, so this was a shipload of ammonium nitrate,
an old shipment.
The ship had broken down. It was owned by a Russian company. Refused to fix the ship. The port seized it. They stuck it in a warehouse
for years.
Yeah, went back and forth with the government and the courts. Nothing ever happened to it. So there were reports that fireworks were stored in the same warehouse. This is an incredibly unsafe, combustible conditions. If you actually watch the explosion, it's completely consistent like that because you see some secondary explosions and then you see the big, balloon thing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Isn't it fascinating how we're numb to huge, explosive, sort of bombshell stories because of this year? I think it's the year. Honest to goodness, there are people who have no recognition, conformity of what Town Hall calls Joe Biden's racist comments about all blacks being the same. I've got people in my world who are like, well, there's not enough diversity among African Americans. What? Joe Biden's, I'm reading here Bronson Stocking, and this is a takeaway from everybody from ABC News to Hot Air to Drudge, and it's coming 88 days before the election. This is huge. This is crucial. It's very important that we convince Americans why it's better to vote for Donald Trump and the Republican Party than Joe Biden and the Democrats. Very important. Last night on Sean Hannity's show, he played a montage of Joe Biden's troubling history with racial comments. It was a fascinating montage for all of the accusations that Donald Trump is a racist. And incidentally, as ABC covered the jaw-dropping comments that Biden made to two different National Association of Black Journalists and the National Association of Hispanic Journalists.
Yes, go on. Hi, everybody. The male-female hour, probably the most honest talk about men and women in the media, of which I am aware. I mean, there might be a competitor. There might be even one more open. It's hard to imagine, but fine. I'm okay with that. But to the best of my knowledge, this is the most honest talk about men and women. Part of the reason is that I have no agenda other than two. That you understand each other, we understand each other better, and that we get along better. That's it. As I say each week, I'm not a man fan, and I am not a woman fan. I'm a good person fan. I find remember, do you know, I even had this man on. There was a professor who wrote a book, The Innate Superiority of Women, or The Superiority of Women. I don't know if innate was in the title. And I had him on. He's a very sweet man. I remember that. And I differed with him every time he said anything. It made no sense to me. There are men, though, who do believe that. And it's I wonder what it's like for a woman to be married to a man who thinks women are superior. I don't think most women in their deepest hearts, the deepest recesses of their hearts, would want that. Do you? Okay. You can see the living martyr's look. You would understand that he just hearing that was a moment of martyrdom for him. Is that correct? Because of the pain. Yes. So today's topic on the male-female hour is, never did this. So this should be most interesting. It is a very common lament among wives, among women who are with a man, that, and I'm paraphrasing, there's no direct quote here, I really just want to be heard. I just want him to hear me. Is that fair? Is that a fair way of stating it? So I am asking, and men are free to call in if you have an answer, but I obviously am asking women, what does that mean? You want to be heard. What does it mean not to be heard? Here's another variation on the theme. Do men want to be heard? I think it's an interesting question. If women want to be heard, now I don't believe the sexes are the same, so we have different wants or different needs. But do men want to be heard? I'm just thinking aloud now. I think men do. Now that I think of it, but they don't walk around thinking I'm not heard. Whereas I think a lot of women do walk around thinking I'm not heard. I have said on many occasions that if your husband became quiet, in other words, he didn't start out quiet, but over time became quiet, it's because he's afraid to say what he's thinking. We got to do that as a subject. If men really said what they thought, what would they say? Perhaps not one of the happiest male-female hours. But anyway, when women say it, that's our topic. What do you mean? I am going to hear you. And so will many others, now that I think of it. That's in that regard. What does it mean to be heard? And why do you feel you're not heard now? Another question. Were you heard in the beginning? See, over time, what develops? What negative things take place in the course of time in a marriage. 1-8 Prager 776-877-243-7776. I will say this. Women who call in and answer the question will be doing a lot of people a service. On the male-female hour, your calls are a service to others because you're expressing things that may often need to be heard by others. Now, here's an admission which may not engender further or increased respect for me. But I always take that gamble because I want to be as real as possible with you. On the issue of women saying, I want to be heard, I don't have an answer to the question that I'm posing. Do you? I'm looking at the living martyr who's been married quite some time. Do you have an answer? Do you know what it means when a woman says, I just want to be heard? No, beyond the literal. Yeah. Right. You don't. Now, he's a good husband. He is married quite some time. And I think I'm a good husband. And neither of us, we're pretty aware, know the answer to the question. I want to be heard. But which, by the way, I don't say that this reflects poorly on the woman who says this. It's not at all, I promise you. I truly level with you. But that's not the intent. The intent is to say we're clueless. I mean, it may be us. I admit it. Now, if I were to ask my wife, do you feel I hear you? I have a very strong sense that the answer would be, it never occurred to me that you don't. If I asked your wife, Susie, does Alan hear you? What would she say? You think she'd say yes. So that's the reason that we don't have a good answer to this. Because it's not an operative element in our marriages. She might say you don't hear her enough. She might say you don't speak enough. Is that possible? No. By the way, we should do an hour on that. On husbands who don't speak enough. That would be another illuminating hour of my husband just he's closed. And by the way, there are such people. You know how strongly I advocate against that. I had an hour recently on the happiness hour on how important transparency is in life. One of was it a caller? Do you know who gave me the nickname Mr. Transparent? I so resonated positively to that. I don't think it was Joel. It might have been. I think it was a caller, and it might not have been on the air. It might have been somebody who knows me through the radio and then said that. Anyway, somebody said it recently, and that's correct. I am transparent, and it is a good goal to aspire to. But we'll do that another time with regard to men. My wife said when she first got to know me, said I have no black holes, no black boxes, not black holes, no black boxes. That's a good way of putting it. All right. What is it you want men to hear, dear women? Back in a moment.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Yeah, before we get off, because you and I love to talk, you have a new book out. The book is titled what?
Jesus Politics, because it occurred to me, you and I are inside a democratic republic, a constitutional republic. However, its foundation is in fact, like John Adams said, the Constitution that James Madison has hammered out for us, it's written for a religious and moral people, and it is wholly inadequate for any other. So the book is about how the kingdom of God, Jesus being the king, it was set up in the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago, 2,020 years ago, roughly. So you say, when Jesus came down and set that kingdom up, the kingdom, the manifesto is love God, love your neighbor, make sure you implement that, be kind, joyful, the fruit of the Spirit, all coming up together, rises. Watch this. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by men, but chosen by God and precious to him. You also, like living stones. I know Pink Floyd was not aware of this when they wrote Another Brick in the Wall, but that's exactly, and they might have got that wordage from here.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you know what this will do to Second Amendment proponents all over the country? Here was her announcement. This is the New York Attorney General yesterday.
Altogether, there are 18 causes of action, and these actions violated multiple laws, including the laws governing the NRA's charitable status, false reporting on annual filings with my office and the IRS, improper expense documentation, improper wage reporting, improper income tax withholding, failure to make required excise tax reporting and payments, payments in excess of reasonable compensation to disqualified persons, and waste of NRA assets, amongst other offenses. For these years of fraud and misconduct, we are seeking an order to dissolve the NRA in its entirety.
The Wall Street Journal editorial board opines this: you have to smile at Letitia James's audacity. The suit claims to speak for millions of donors, but how does dissolving the nonprofit deliver relief or justice to gun rights donors or their cause? Of course, it's all politically driven. Everybody knows that. Letitia James knows it. She once called the NRA a terrorist organization. The death penalty remedy, the Wall Street Journal notes, is one hint that there might be some politics going on here.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
These Twitter accounts have lost thousands of followers. Brandon Straka, the man.
Okay. Male-female hour every Wednesday, the second hour of the Dennis Prager Show. And the subject today is women lamenting that they're not heard by their husband / partner / significant other / boyfriend. That's the subject here. What does that mean? Because men, good-natured men, in most cases, don't quite understand what that means. All right, so let's go to your calls here. All right, Richard in Fresno, it's not on the subject, so I'm going to let you go, but definitely give me a call on Friday. I got a call on the topic here, and we're going to take only those calls. So thank you, sir. All right, let's get what's going on here? It's all men calling. By the way, it's a very interesting thing on my show. The number of women who call in on political subjects and the number of men who call in on the male-female hour. There's no. Oh well, take a look. It's Casey, Jim, Mike, Craig. No, I didn't. Not all. Out of the 8 lines, 7. There's one female. So I may have to let some of the males go. I mean, I want to hear from males, but it's obviously it's. All right. Well, we'll go to a male here. Not because his name is Dennis, but because it looks interesting. Crown Point, Indiana. Dennis, hello.
Hi, Mr. Prager. Told the screener, I'll be 20 years married this January. Early on, we had real problems. I'm married to a Latina who, the whole Latina world is in complete conflict with my emotions. Very German background, so German versus Latina, but my problem was the breakdown, the crying, I wasn't listening, and at the core of it was, she said, you're trying to fix what I'm telling you about, you're not listening. She would tell me something, I'd say, great, I'd process the information. Being male, my job is to guard, to protect, to nurture, and to fix stuff. That's our divine nature. But the woman doesn't necessarily want us to fix it. She wants us to empathize. And I had to learn in that moment, fixing it is my way I'm wired is, I hear you, I'm fixing it. See, I heard you, I fixed it. She doesn't want it fixed. There's some things she doesn't care if it's
Can you play the opening? I'm looking to Sean. Would you play from the opening? That's exactly. Or is it Elizabeth Hurley? That is saying, that's what men think. We want to think. Who's the actress? It doesn't matter. Do you have that section, Sean? Can you isolate that from the opening? I mean, it's really, it is really amazing that this Dennis in Indiana is almost word for word repeating that segment of the opening. Do you have it there? All right, we'll get it. That's perfect. The only difference is there's no bloke on the Essex Road in Dennis's house in Indiana. He's going to fix it. His point is, he made a very powerful point. Did you guys hear it? By my being able to think I could fix it, it means I heard you. That was a very important point. Now, how could a woman deny that logic? I can't fix any problem that I don't know about, and I know about it because I heard you. Now, that's how a man thinks, but my point is, I don't care how men think, how women think. I care about what's true. He heard you if he thinks he can fix it. So if he says, oh, this is what I recommend, that means he heard you. Tell me, and I think, now you may say that's a male brain thinking. Okay. But tell me why it's wrong. It's not enough to say it's a male brain thinking it. All right. Let's go to Bonnie in Jacksonville, Florida. Hi, Bonnie.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
I just wanted to comment on your being heard segment
Yes.
on your women and men show.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women, when they say they want to be heard, is that they want to be validated after they said something that's been weighing on them. Being validated kind of like helps them feel understood when they're saying something. And I really learned from that previous caller. That really settled with me, knowing that trying to fix something, I am being heard. Like when they're actively trying to fix something when I don't want
Yeah,
something
that
to be
might
fixed.
be one of the
Wow.
great takeaways from this hour. It's why I highlighted it. It would have gone unnoted. So, so then the next question, and here I do believe it's as a male, I'm asking this: what does it mean to be validated?
Just to know that you're valued and your thoughts are valued and you're just being understood and heard. I don't know. It just
Are you married?
validated. Yes, I am married.
Does your husband succeed in that role?
Oh, yes, he does. He's an amazing husband.
How'd you find him?
Yep. We actually met, we both come from broken marriages, and we just to learn from them, and we treat each other the way we both want to be
Right, but
treated.
how did you find him? Online, at a bar?
A blind date that we didn't know that we were on.
Was it
Two friends
arranged to be
set
a
us up.
blind date that you didn't know about, or it ended up being a blind date?
We just didn't know about it. Like, we just had a couple friends. Everybody was paired up besides him and I, and we kind of put two and two together afterwards.
Was it fairly quick that you fell in love with him?
Yes, instantaneously.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got good
Sometimes you're just made for somebody.
That's correct. Well, what a joy to hear from you. That was the famous Bonnie of Jacksonville, incidentally, in case you didn't know. She's 30. She reminds me of my take on the secret to a happy marriage. I have no idea how many of you will react when I say it. Some of you have heard me say it. The secret to most happy marriages is luck. We'll be back.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
We have to talk about the jobs figures that are out, beating all market expectations. What is your interpretation of the almost 1.8 million jobs added in just July?
That we're recovering despite lawmakers who don't want to see us succeed. And I hate to say that because to me, Seb, politics should not, economics should not be political. In other words, we should be able to all look at our economy and say we want what's best for our economy. We want jobs for American workers. We want success for American workers. And that should be divorced entirely from who's going to win in November. But unfortunately, too many people, politically motivated, look at our economy through the lens of politics. And thus, they want to make sure that their candidate is better positioned. And in their view, they would like to see, I hate to say it, again, America's economy really struggle, because then that makes all those socialist policies that they put forward suddenly more attractive. I mean, not to me, but they think that to more Americans it will be attractive. But here's the reality. 1.8 million jobs being added to the economy, far more than people thought, and that's despite this on-again, off-again shutdown thing, right? That's a total schizophrenia type of move from local lawmakers who can't figure out whether they should open or close. And we still succeeded in adding nearly 2 million jobs. So that tells you that if government would just get out of the way, people could do what they know how to do, and that's run a business and participate in a market economy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
How much time do you spend thinking about root causes of the public policy choices that are made here, Heather?
I think the root causes come out of the university, the safetyism ethic, the feminization of university culture is now translated itself into this civilization destroying mantra of stay safe. I cringe every time I hear that. That is not how a vital culture thinks about things. At some point, we need a politician to stand up and say, there is death. Death is a fact of life. There are going to be some deaths from coronavirus as there are from other things, but there is much more death and destruction being wrought right now by this heartbreaking crushing of private enterprise, of hopes, of dreams, of future generations' opportunity, and staying safe, avoiding one type of risk to the ignorance of all other costs is not what we have elected our government officials to do. They have abdicated their responsibility to weigh the costs and benefits of any given action. They have put themselves in the hands of an extremely narrow set of experts whose own expertise changes by the day. Americans have to wake up and start demanding change, because we are really, really playing not just with the lives of people now who are out of work and whose efforts to create businesses have now been snuffed out completely, but we are playing with our children's lives, because, again, prosperity is not coming back the longer these lockdowns continue.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Yeah, before we get off, because you and I love to talk, you have a new book out. The book is titled what?
Jesus Politics, because it occurred to me, you and I are inside.
Yep. Is today being videoed? I'm Dennis Prager. This is the Male-Female Hour, because it is the second hour of my show on Wednesday. Women say they would like to be heard by their husbands, by the man in their lives. So my question is, what does it mean to be heard? Been very interesting. It always is interesting. You folks have a lot of important things to say. All righty, everybody. Let's go. Let's get another woman here. Let's see. Jamie in Irvine, California. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for
So I've heard a man say that he thinks that the woman needs to empathize with, and then I heard a woman say that, we want to be validated. I'm 41 years old. I have a fiance. I've been married and divorced before. I've watched my parents. I've watched his parents and how they interact. And honestly, I think what it is it's partnership. Women just want to know that they're partners. Their voice matters just as much as the man's voice, because for so long we've been kind of like put into this place, this box. And now with all of these independent females coming out, just being heard is being a partner, in my opinion.
Were you not heard in your first marriage?
Oh God, no. And that's really weird, because I'm a veteran, and my ex-husband was a veteran as well, and we served together. I was never heard. And I'm a pretty strong, independent woman, so not being heard kind of ticks me off. But no, it was like I was put into place. Like, you're the woman of this relationship. You're to be at home. You're to fix things. And I actually went to war before he did, and that totally changed the dynamic. And that's actually what started our downfall of our marriage.
I understand. And it's different now?
With my fiance, yes. It is absolutely a joy to be around him. We have enlightening conversations. He's from, he's had previous marriages as well, and we've learned. And exactly what the other woman said, it's just, that helps with this relationship because we know kind of going in what's expected, and it's just nice to just learn from each other and be a partner. And we are 100% partners, and that's amazing.
Who earns more?
Right now, he does.
Why are you laughing?
Well, because we were equal earners until this shutdown came, and I was furloughed and then laid off, and now I'm going back to school for my master's degree in education. So
it's funny that you're laughing. So let me ask you this. If it had to turn out that one earned more than the other, lockdown or whatever other reason, would you prefer it be he, or don't care, or prefer it be you? You have three choices.
it honestly doesn't matter, because that's just how we are. He is secure in his manhood. If I earn more, doesn't matter. If he earns more, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm laughing.
I hear you. Well, you've been a joy to talk to. Thank you. I have to say, which may surprise some of you, but not all of you, I totally support the partner idea. Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. I agree. My wife is my partner. But I do call her, unlike Gavin Newsom, I do call my wife, not only partner. California does not have a governor who has a wife. They have a governor, even though they're married, who has a partner. But in reality, that is a wonderful thing to have. All right, let's continue here. Okay, well, we'll take a call after this break. I have to do an hour on men being heard. It's not something people think about much, ironically. But anyway, we will continue with this. All right. It is a joy to tell you about Relief Factor, and I'll tell you why it's a joy. Very simple. It works for the great majority of people who use it. It's safe, and pain is a bad thing. Not emotional pain. That you grow from, but physical pain has nothing to commend to it. So I really advocate you try, and it's a try. It's a 3-week try. If it doesn't work in 3 weeks, Relief Factor just probably won't work for you. So you've thrown out $19.95 and shipping. It's worth a try, isn't it? Go to relieffactor.com, the 3-week quick start, 800-500-8384, relieffactor.com.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now let me get to the bad news. Politico. COVID talks going nowhere as deadline nears. New York Times. Amid dire jobless numbers, small business relief program nears end. Washington Post. White House Democrats fail to reach agreement on virus relief bill. Next steps are uncertain. Financial Times. Donald Trump threatens executive action to break stimulus impact. You see what's going on? Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are demanding $3.5 trillion. The Republicans want to extend unemployment insurance, and they want to give small businesses money. It's about $1 trillion package. They're $2.5 trillion apart. Democrats are holding the unemployed hostage to the Green New Deal. It's that simple. They are holding the unemployed and small businesses hostages to broke states with massive deficits and unsustainable public employee pension program. And Mark Meadows and Steve Mnuchin don't give in. The president can use executive action, and he should. The great one, Mark Levin, tweeted out last night, and on this, I believe Republicans are united. $1 trillion for relief of people who still can't find a job. The unemployment numbers are coming down. We'll get a number at 8:30 today, which I hope will continue to get us closer to 10% unemployment. And the third quarter is going to be magnificent as America reopens. But you can't be held up this way. And I cannot believe Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are doing it, but they are doing it.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
How do people live without Jesus and the comfort of God? Because we are living in tough times. If people don't have that, I would think that there are people dying of fright in their apartments, in their houses right now, watching TV. It's one of the reasons you and I need to share the good news of Jesus Christ, because there's so many people, they don't even know it's possible to have the peace that you and I have.
When we, in the 60s, when the edicts began to coming from a group of individuals, the Supreme Court forgot one key element. There's a vast difference between the Supreme Court, a man-made court, and the supreme being. There's a vast difference. They forgot that, and they started passing the edicts. So we've been on a no God, no discipline, no love. We've been on that, and now it's turned to hatred.
Okay, all Dennis Prager here. The male-female hour is about women wanting to be heard. What does that mean? And as usual, you folks have been just illuminating. I think part of the reason that you feel free to be open in talking to me on the air is because I'm open. It's another argument for transparency. People react to transparency by being open themselves. There's an intuition of, I have a green light to speak. You have a green light to speak on the show. Sean found a segment. We won't play the whole thing, but it's so funny. It's sort of like a spoof on this issue. So here, I'll let you listen for a moment. So he brings her a glass of water.
If I have a problem, you're not supposed to solve it. Men always make the mistake of thinking they can solve a woman's problem. Makes them feel omnipotent.
Omnipotent? Did you have a bad dream?
It's a way of controlling a woman.
Bringing them a glass of water?
Yes. I read it in a magazine. See, if I'm thirsty, I don't want you to bring me a glass of water. I want you to sympathize. I want you to say, Gloria, I too know what it feels like to be thirsty. I too have had a dry mouth. I want you to connect with me through sharing and understanding the concept of dry-mouthedness.
This is all in the same magazine?
Okay, we'll leave it at that. This is just, it's so funny. All right, let's go on here. Carly in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Hello.
Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
I wanted to share my thoughts on why maybe some women don't feel heard in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say I've never actually said to my husband that I don't feel heard, but I think it to myself on a regular basis. I think that some women might feel this way because we feel our opinions are, well, literally just not heard, or they don't count for anything, or if we participate in a conversation, our husband maybe already has his mind made up and nothing that we have to say matters. So I think for me, it's based on how my opinion or how my feedback fits into our relationship.
Why haven't you told him this?
I don't think he would be happy to hear it. I think he would argue back with me that that's not true.
I'm sorry, what's not
because
true?
He doesn't value my opinion.
So he doesn't tell me, are there any subjects he values your opinion?
He values my opinion when someone asks him specifically for my feedback on something. And if it's within my area of expertise, then he values my opinion in that he's proud to pass what I have to say on to them. That's what I can say. Like, he does think I'm very smart. He supports me in my career, and he's very proud, and he supports my opinion and my feedback when I can give it to someone else to help them.
But not to him?
No.
I see. Do you have children?
No, we don't have kids.
And if you wanted to, it sounds trivial, but it's not a trivial question. If you wanted to remodel the house, would he value your opinion on what to do with any given room?
Well, I can give you a very specific
good
circumstance. He told me that he wanted to put something that he liked up as a picture over our dining room table. And I said, okay, what's that? And he wanted to take a picture from his favorite movie of, I think, Al Pacino and someone else, I think maybe from the movie Heat, sitting across the table from each other, staring each other down. And I said, you could put that in your garage, but not in our dining room. And he didn't like my opinion on that, because I told him that our house is more like, that's more like a bachelor pad thing. We're adults. We make decent money.
By the way,
we're proud of our home.
I happen to agree with you. By the way,
50% there.
I happen to agree with you. What was resolved? Where is that painting now, or that picture?
In his garage, which he can put anything up.
Wait. So why is that not an example?
Over the entire garage.
Why is that not an example of his taking your opinion seriously?
Because he wants it in the house.
No, but it ended up in the garage, which is what you wanted, and I happen to agree with you, but nevertheless.
Well, because his opinion, it wasn't even that he was going to get the picture no matter what. And
wait. You wanted it in the garage.
The compromise wasn't, for him, the compromise was, it's in the house or he's going to be totally pissed at me. I said no, and we had it was a huge fight. It wasn't just a discussion, it was a huge fight, and it came up for a very long time. So it wasn't something I came by easily, but I get what you're saying, like, well, yeah, you won eventually. But
yeah, no, I hear you, and I hear him, and I hear that you won. A dining room needs a more sophisticated picture in it. I would like to explain that to your husband. It's there's a lot to say. We'll be back.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The biggest story of the week in terms of national security. It looked like a nuclear detonation in Beirut, in the port, in the docks there. I always say, first things first, with anything coming out of that region, especially the benighted region of Lebanon, most initial reports are fallacious. You got to wait and see. Fireworks this, fireworks that. How do you deal with breaking massive stories like that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the way a professional analyst does with that is you take the facts when you have, as you get them in, and you try to put context around them and say, does this kind of pass the common sense test? So hundreds of deaths, thousands and thousands of casualties, about $15 billion in damage. If you think of
and tens of thousands homeless.
That's right. If you think of the Murrah office building
in Oklahoma, which
was actually a bomb made out of ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
But it's highly combustible. So if you put it, you can make a bomb out of it. 1,000 times more powerful than that. So, so totally consistent with that kind of explosion. And apparently, so this was a shipload of ammonium nitrate,
an old shipment.
The ship had broken down. It was owned by a Russian company. Refused to fix the ship. The port seized it. They stuck it in a warehouse
for years.
Yeah, went back and forth with the government and the courts. Nothing ever happened to it. So there were reports that fireworks were stored in the same warehouse. This is an incredibly unsafe, combustible conditions. If you actually watch the explosion, it's completely consistent like that because you see some secondary explosions and then you see the big, balloon thing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Isn't it fascinating how we're numb to huge, explosive, sort of bombshell stories because of this year? I think it's the year. Honest to goodness, there are people who have no recognition, enormity of what Town Hall calls Joe Biden's racist comments about all blacks being the same. I've got people in my world who are like, well, there's not enough diversity among African Americans. What? Joe Biden's, I'm reading here Bronson Stocking, and this is a takeaway from everybody from ABC News to Hot Air to Drudge, and it's coming 88 days before the election. This is huge. This is crucial. It's very important that we convince America.
Call Dennis Prager here, male-female hour. They had a big fight over whether or not to put this photo from an Al Pacino film in the dining room. And now I didn't hear his side, so I'm only reacting to what she said. I always make that clear. But based on what she said, the husband should not have argued. When it comes to putting a picture or photo up in the dining room of your home, you both have to agree on it. If you disagree, you could discuss it, and that ends the issue. Why would you want to put in your dining room, that is the two of you, your dining room, something the other can't stand? And that it's not an arguable issue. I'll bet that there are 10,000 photos and or paintings that you would both agree on. So that's what should be put in the dining room. So that's my reaction to that. So the issue here is women being heard. Julie in San Gabriel, California. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Prager. Longtime listener. In fact, my husband's doing yard work outside right now, so this should be interesting. Hi, honey.
Hi, honey.
So I'm hearing a lot about empathy and validation. I think those are totally right-on concepts. But then it comes to, well, how do I show those? How do I apply this? So I came up with a magic sentence that I think husbands could use that would knock out both these things in one try after their wife is finished talking.
Okay, we're waiting. Drum roll.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so it would help if they meant it, when they said it. That's going to help. And I have two versions of it. So one is a little more formal and eloquent, and the other is more street pedestrian. So when your wife is talking, a couple of nods while she's expressing herself are helpful. So either way, start out with a nod or two, and then when she's all done, you nod 2 more times because that shows you're taking information in, and then you say, I totally understand what you're saying, and I would have felt the same way in that situation. So I think that gives empathy, and it validates something. And that's kind of the more elegant version.
I agree with you on number 1, but number 2 is asking him to say something that may not be true. What if he wouldn't? What if he would not react that way in that situation?
That is true. That's going to take a little bit of change then on your part. But at least
maybe it should take change on your part. I understand, honey. I'm with you. I would have reacted the same way, honey. If it's not true, then it's patronizing. And then you're not a partner. Great call, Pat, Michelle, Patty, Danny, Karen, Craig, Rebecca. Only God knows how much I wish I could have taken your calls.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Here was civil rights lawyer Leo Terrell last night on Fox News.
Joe Biden is unfit to be president, and Joe Biden is a racist. Joe Biden has the mindset of a plantation owner. He thinks he knows how every black person thinks, how we walk, what we should eat. Joe Biden doesn't understand that black people are individuals. Condoleezza Rice and Al Sharpton are different individuals. We have a different mindset. And what the Democrats will do is they'll roll out Jim Kleinberg, and he say it's okay. Jim Kleinberg doesn't speak for me or Larry or black America. No one black person speaks for black America. And CNN and MSNBC, they wouldn't cover this today. Donald Trump is absolutely right. Joe Biden insulted every black American today, and he should not be president. He is the racist. What is so amazing to me is that they're going to put this guy out in front and say he's not. The only reason why he is getting a pass because he has a D in front of his name, not an R. Republicans are the people who believe in the colorblind society. Democrats are the ones who believe in identity and race politics.
It is very important that you seize this moment and recognize the political bombshell that this has been at a time when Biden's lead is dropping. His lead over Trump is dropping at a time when, God willing, coronavirus will start to dissipate, go down. The numbers will go down at a time when black Americans have to make a big decision. A lot of analysis involves believing that the key to the November 3rd election is the black vote.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Dear members of the entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
We know that you're more famous than any of us.
Well, most of us.
I'm mad.
Distressed. Alarmed.
Infuriated.
It's your job to be creative.
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 And yet, how many of these lame-ass videos have you made that look exactly like this?
Like this.
Like this.
You entertain us.
It's literally your whole job.
Here's what we ask.
No. Here's what we demand.
That you reject anything that is anti-original,
anti-interesting,
anti-convincing.
We demand that you try harder.
Harder.
If you do, we'll be with you.
But if not, we'll continue to not care
about anything.
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 You have to say. Signed, the majority. The majority.
The majority.
Of the American people.
And we're done, because that's a reasonable amount of time.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Eric Holder once gave a speech in which he talked about pernicious racism. He said the kind of racism that was shown by Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Clippers. You might remember he was taped by his then girlfriend making all sorts of nasty comments about black people. He never said, by the way, the N-word, although she tried to get him to say it. She did everything but hold up cue cards to get him to say it, and he still didn't say it. Anyway, Eric Holder said, people like that, blatant racists, we deal with them. It's the pernicious stuff that we ought to be concerned about. And he gave 3 examples, one of which was the fact that black criminal defendants get longer sentences for a same crime committed by a white criminal defendant. And as I said, and as I wrote, this is true. What Eric Holder didn't say is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission that concluded that blacks do get longer sentences said the reason they got them was for legitimate factors. Most notably, judges will look at your arrest record when determining what your sentence is. And the average black criminal has a longer record than the average white criminal. Therefore, the average black criminal gets a longer sentence than does the average white criminal. I'm sorry. I would urge you to Google Larry Elder, Eric Holder, sentencing discrepancy, U.S. Sentencing Commission, or something like that, and you'll be able to get the article. I wrote an article about each of the 3 examples that Eric Holder gave that he determined was pernicious racism. One of them.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The biggest story of the week in terms of national security. It looked like a nuclear detonation in Beirut, in the port, in the docks there. I always say, first things first with anything coming out of that region, especially the benighted region of Lebanon. Most initial reports are fallacious. You got to wait and see. Fireworks this, fireworks that. How do you deal with breaking massive stories like that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the way a professional analyst does with that is you take the facts when you have, as you get them in, and you try to put context around them and say, does this kind of pass the common sense test? So hundreds of deaths, thousands and thousands of casualties, about $15 billion in damage. If you think of
and tens of thousands homeless.
That's right. If you think of the Murrah office building
in Oklahoma, which
was actually a bomb made out of ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
But it's highly combustible. So if you put it, you can make a bomb out of it. 1,000 times more powerful than that. So, so totally consistent with that kind of explosion. And apparently, so this was a shipload of ammonium nitrate,
an old shipment.
The ship had broken down. It was owned by a Russian company. Refused to fix the ship. The port seized it. They stuck it in a warehouse
for years.
Yeah, it went back and forth with the government and the courts. Nothing ever happened to it. So there were reports that fireworks were stored in the same warehouse. This is
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show. I mentioned in the first hour that there's a video of Nancy Pelosi having her hair done and getting it blow-dried, no mask, which is fine with me, by the way. I do the same thing. I don't get blow dry, but I go to, I've been going to haircuts. Gavin Newsom is not going to control my life. He's a fool. It has nothing to do with science. It has to do with power and politics. So I've been going regularly to an underground hair salon. But I, unlike Nancy Pelosi, tell you I do that. She tells you to listen to Newsom. There's a big difference, isn't there? All righty, everybody. I have Heather McDonald on. Heather McDonald is a courageous, brilliant woman, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. This week's PragerU video is presented by Heather McDonald. Police go where the crime is. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Dennis.
You in California or New York?
Irvine, California. Slightly,
welcome
in
to
some ways, better than New York's insanity, COVID insanity, in other ways worse.
Correct. You don't, when you're in New York, are you in Manhattan?
Yes.
So, before we get to the topic of your video and the general police issue, are you in an area where there are homeless just simply lying out, hanging out on streets?
There's a homeless encampment right virtually in my building because I am at a subway station, and it has gotten much, much worse. As I predicted, the subway station would end up with serving as a magnet. There were a chain of restaurant robberies, break-ins before I left New York for California. And the police are doing nothing, obviously, because of the false narrative that to enforce the law is racist.
Why? Are most of the homeless black?
Disproportionately black, that's
I didn't know
sure.
that, because I don't think that's true here.
No, it is. It's true everywhere.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So,
yeah, you were talking about the Los Angeles Times earlier today, rightly so. They did a piece this summer saying that the disproportionate number of homeless who in L.A. who are black shows that we are a systemically racist society. That's not the reason for the disproportion. The reason for the disproportion is drug use, alcohol use, and there's evidence that is cited by Alex Berenson in his marijuana book of a slightly higher rate of schizophrenia among blacks.
Well, look, the message is so condescending. If you are black and you lead a dysfunctional life, it is society's fault. If you are white and lead a dysfunctional life, it is your fault.
Yeah, there's society, the elites have absolutely no capacity to apply norms in a colorblind, objective manner, which makes them not norms. It makes them an exercise in self-righteous virtue signaling that is of no use and, in fact, is absolutely detrimental, as you say, to a functioning society, to carve out zones of irresponsibility for certain groups.
I just want to return to Manhattan for a moment. When people see what is going on and they look at the riots and the non-response and the de Blasio defunding of police and this very new problem, aside from stores shut down, people lying in the street and relieving themselves there and doing other things that shouldn't be done in public. Do you think any of them say, wow, look at what happens under Democratic rule?
You know, Dennis, I'm trying to recall what the New York Times coverage was leading up to the fantastic, desperately needed mayoralty of Rudolph Giuliani. right now what we're seeing is a abdication on the part of the press to merely report factual matters, to merely exercise some sort of empirical obligation to say what is going on with regards to this outbreak of revolutionary violence. Let's call it the unnamed civil war that is going on in our country. Those New Yorkers who are the vast majority, who only read the New York Times, they have no idea the violence going on across the country, and they have no idea what is going on in New York City. The only outlet that's been covering it consistently is the New York Post, whether it's regards to the sexual violence, the child predation of the homeless shelters that are being placed on the Upper West Side. So I don't know, but on the other hand, it's so pervasive. If people were going to work in Midtown, which they're not because of the reign of hysteria, they would see the encampments. They would see the absolute destruction of traditional urban life. But now they're living in a deliberate veil of ignorance. So it's very hard to know what the public knows, whether that will lead, again, belatedly, to a revolution in New Yorkers' self-image, which is of immaculately progressive virtue.
So, if I hear you correctly, I, living in California, not reading only the New York Times, know more about what is happening in Manhattan than someone living in Manhattan, let alone Brooklyn or the Bronx, who only listens to the New York Times.
That's absolutely right. Now, if you're in Brooklyn and the Bronx, the shootings now are so pervasive. You may have witnessed things, you may have heard of things, but parts of Manhattan, small little islands of Manhattan, perhaps, if you're in the East 60s and Madison Avenue, perhaps not, although, last week they're at 63rd and Lexington, which is heart of East Side Manhattan, there was a sexual assault in a subway that nobody did anything about. So it's coming everywhere. But so far, there is not an obvious contender to take this on. We've been seeing that the contenders that have raised to replace Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's term limited out, have run from de Blasio further left, which is an absolutely terrifying prospect. And there is no Rudolph Giuliani on the horizon. It's remarkable, Dennis, as you as a scholar of history know, how reliant we really are on individuals.
Yes.
We need leaders, and the moment does not necessarily reliably create them. But without a Rudolph Giuliani coming in there, I don't see how New York ever comes back, because the spiraling decline into anarchy and just the punch in the gut to the city's economy by de Blasio and Cuomo's ongoing recalcitrance when it comes to recognizing the reality that we have to open up, we have to be Americans and be bold, we have to reject living with fear, we have to reject the utterly spirit-crushing mantra of stay safe, which is not a way to conduct a civilization. With these two in charge, the economy in New York is just going to go into a permanent, cold, moribund state.
I in my column this week that the lockdown has gone from mistake to crime. That's basically the title. I cite as an example, the American Museum Association predicts that 1 out of every 3 museums will permanently shut if we continue the lockdown. And I know how much you're involved in the arts. You and I are both crazy about music. I'm going to continue with her because she's just so right. Heather McDonald, watch her video at PragerU. It's this week's. It's on the police. They're all 5 minutes. PragerU.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The biggest story of the week in terms of national security. It looked like a nuclear detonation in Beirut, in the port, in the docks there. I always say, first things first, with anything coming out of that region, especially the benighted region of Lebanon, most initial reports are fallacious. You got to wait and see. Fireworks this, fireworks that. How do you deal with breaking massive stories like that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, exactly the way a professional analyst does with that is you take the facts when you have, as you get them in, and you try to put context around them and say, does this kind of pass the common sense test? So hundreds of deaths, thousands and thousands of casualties, about $15 billion in damage. If you think of
and tens of thousands homeless.
That's right. If you think of the Murrah office building
in Oklahoma, which
was actually a bomb made out of ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
But it's highly combustible. So if you put it, you can make a bomb out of it. 1,000 times more powerful than that. So, so totally consistent with that kind of explosion. And apparently, so this was a shipload of ammonium nitrate,
an old shipment.
The ship had broken down. It was owned by a Russian company. Refused to fix the ship. The port seized it. They stuck it in a warehouse
for years.
Yeah, went back and forth with the government and the courts. Nothing ever happened to it. So there were reports that fireworks were stored in the same warehouse. This is an incredibly unsafe, combustible conditions. If you actually watch the explosion, it's completely consistent like that because you see some secondary explosions and then you see the big, balloon thing.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. The recent unveiling of the Republican agenda for a second term gave much encouragement to many who need it. Defeat COVID, create jobs, disentangle from China, provide school choice, teach American exceptionalism unapologetically, defend the police as an institution, oppose human trafficking. These and other measures offer sanity, flourishing, and hope to an embattled country. No agenda can cover every issue. Two outstanding issues need platforming, however: religious liberty and abortion. The Trump administration has taken stands on both of these momentous matters and to good effect. In days ahead, though, supporters of religious liberty and the unerasable humanity of the unborn need more support, not less. Religious liberty, after all, is for this gloriously free society the first freedom. Among other righteous ends, it enables a diverse coalition of many voices to speak on behalf of the unborn, until the murderous abomination of abortion is a distant memory. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Super personal for me. I mean, my dad was a cop. He spent almost 20 years on the force, and on literally on his last day at the job, in 20 years, my dad never pulled his gun out of his holster. 20 years on the job, his last day on patrol, pulls a guy over in a car, walks up to the guy pulls out a gun, puts it in his face, pulls the trigger. The gun just did not go off. It misfired. The guy had a murder felony warrant out for his arrest. But for the grace of God, go out. Look, here's one of the big problems.
And he was all right. He got arrested.
Oh, yeah. My dad, arrested the guy. Dad came home, never bothered to mention it.
some social distancing rules, but they were open. You could walk around. In Irvine, until very recently, you had to drive through the market. You couldn't get out of your car. I refused to do that. People would line up, apparently, for 2 hours in advance at 6 a.m. to try and get in at 8 a.m. Because of the absolutely ludicrous idea that in the outdoors you can get infected. As you know, Dennis, this is perhaps the biggest lie, that there is outdoor transmission. The reason we're all wearing masks outdoors is not to prevent ourselves from getting sick and dying. It's to serve as walking billboards of state-imposed fear, because everybody wearing a mask outdoors is sending a signal that lethal risk is everywhere.
Wait. I want to just underline what I didn't want to interrupt you. Walking billboards of what? Institutionalized fear? What was you? Do you remember?
Of institutionalized fear, right?
I love it. No. Wait. I want to revel in it. Wait, you're not letting me revel in it. Walking billboards of institutionalized fear. We must publicize that. That's brilliant. That's right. WBIF. It's like Foucault, the panopticon. The state is using our bodies, is inscribing its power on our bodies. The way Foucault said the pre-modern state did with torture, to convey its message. We become the message of the state, which says, be afraid, be very afraid. There is no outdoor transmission, period. Infection requires close contact in a confined indoor space. For a prolonged period and very close to one another. 10 to 30 minutes with one person who is talking right into your face for that period of time indoors, and then you might get the infection.
That's it. 15 minutes. The CDC contact tracing guidelines isn't even interested in you unless you've been in 15 minutes of prolonged contact. These fleeting encounters outdoors with circulating air, viral dose matters. Fresh air absolutely makes it impossible to contact the virus. And yet, this message, we say wear masks in public. It is conveniently
right. I don't wear one. We have. I live in. I work in Glendale, not too far from where you are right now. That's where the radio station is. I don't wear a mask here in Glendale. I could get a $400 fine the first time. I will pay $400 and go to court rather than succumb to becoming a walking billboard of institutionalized fear, because I follow the science, whereas Glendale doesn't.
That's absolutely right. And I actually think that the conservatives have made a mistake in resting their opposition to outdoor mask wearing on sheer libertarian.
That's right. It's all
values.
Science. I'm totally for following the science.
If there were strong evidence of strong infection possibility outdoors, I think that there are legitimate grounds for the state power for the common good. So I'll reluctantly wear masks indoors, but I'm not going to do it outdoors.
Well, I will tell you, a couple of weeks ago, I spoke in Chicago, and I had a meet and greet beforehand, and I must have shaken hands and on occasion hugged about 50 strangers, and maskless. And I am totally at peace with that, and in part because I take hydroxychloroquine every week with zinc. So I'm cheating.
Well, I just got back from a conference in Vail at the Steamboat Institute. Same thing. It doesn't even occur to me. I think even with this fake, phony second wave, the risk to any individual is still minute, given the size of this country.
That's right.
The number of cases, the number of deaths we had is still a minute fraction of anything else that Americans put up with. I'm yearning for the leader who will get up and say, Yes, there will be more deaths.
That's
There's
right.
more deaths
That's
from
right.
everything. Get over it.
That's correct.
Move on with your lives.
We lost the exact same number in 2020 terms, 1968 to 1970. Not one store closed, not one mask was worn. Americans understood viruses come. It is a tragedy. That is part of life. Cancer comes. That is a tragedy. It is part of life. You don't wreck hundreds of millions of people's lives around the world, billions around the world, because of a virus. You just don't do that.
And yet, our mantra now is that we heard from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo at the early stage of this. If we save just one life, everything will be worth it. That remains our public policy. You cannot, as you say, Dennis, that is not how human society functions.
All right, we'll continue with Heather McDonald. We not? Oh, how ironic. We didn't even talk about her police video. She's too logical.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Here's the reporter. Again, I'm not trying to laugh in a ha-ha way. This actually happened. And picture this report with a graphic that says, fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Here it is.
What you're seeing behind me is one of multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin over the course of the night. A second night since Jacob Blake was seen shot in the back 7 times by a police officer. And what you are seeing now, these images came and come in stark contrast to what we saw over the course of the daytime hours in Kenosha and into the early evening, which were largely peaceful demonstrations in the face of law enforcement. It wasn't until night fell that things began to get a little bit more contentious. Things were thrown back and forth. Police started using some of those crowd dispersal tactics like tear gas, even playing very loud sounds to push them out. And then what you are seeing, the common theme that ties all of this together, is an expression of anger and frustration over what people feel like has become an all too familiar story playing out in places from across the country, not just here in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Got it. Expression of frustration and anger in the fiery but mostly peaceful protest. And if you're watching now on the stream at MikeOnline.com, you see the guy standing there with all the burning buildings behind him. Somebody at CNN in a position of authority said, you know what graphic we'll put up here? We'll put up a graphic because we can't let people know that they're rioting and that they're tearing down and destroying our city. That doesn't play well.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Now, isn't it interesting? I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that, you know, all these people that go on about how great the women leaders are of this world. You know, that woman down in New Zealand, you know, the woman running Germany and ruining Europe, Angela Merkel. You know, it's all right, apparently, to call them women when you're being kind about them. But it's not okay to call them women if you want to actually discuss whether or not, you know, they can be of any particular gender. And President Trump, right, he suggested that it might be necessary to put off the election because of the COVID virus, right? She actually does put off the election. He gets called a fascist. She gets called a hero. Go figure.
Mike, how about this? How about if my boss, President Trump, says that he feels like a woman? Does that mean he's the first female president? Because by lefty logic, he is.
Yeah, absolutely right. Of course, he can self-identify as that if he so wishes. You know, good luck to him.
I'm going to get wax philosophical for 1 second. If gender, Mike, just bear with me. If gender is a social construct, why do you need to have transgenderism?
Well, that's a very good question.
Why do you need to have operations if it's a social construct? Can you tell I study philosophy?
I can tell that, and it's coming in very handy in this day and age, because it really is quite remarkable. I mean, you know, we have a situation now here where all logic has gone out the window from the establishment, right? You've got the BBC who've decided that Land of Hope and Glory, which was written...
You're a mind reader. Okay, explain to us what happened at this amazing thing called the Proms. You've got these two songs. Explain to us what the BBC tried to do to the British heritage.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
If ever there were pressure on the voters to pay attention, because we don't have the sort.
Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I have the Secretary of Education of the United States of America on the line, Betsy DeVos, who has been fighting for children and parents all her life, and now, thank God, is in a position to really do more about it, as she has as Secretary of Education. Betsy DeVos, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Thanks, Dennis. It's great to join you.
Thank you. By the way, I think I will be with your husband next week in Grand Rapids.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
That's excellent. I wish I could be there too.
Yes. Well, I wish you could. Have a family reunion. Anyway,
yes,
you wrote an open letter to America's parents and children, and that I saw at least in one place in the Detroit News. I want to read to you very quickly and have you comment, given that your important position, obviously. This is from the BBC, and the UK's chief medical advisor said that children are more likely to be harmed by not returning to school next month than if they catch coronavirus. That is how much harm he believes. This is the UK's chief medical advisor. How much harm it is to keep kids out of school. What's your take on that?
Well, I think he's absolutely right. And, our own CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics have all opined essentially the same way. There's one measure of health, and it's whether a child has a coronavirus or not. But there are a lot of other measures of a child's whole health, and that includes their mental well-being, their social and emotional growth, not to mention, importantly, their academic growth. And we have seen consistently over the last several months students who have been falling further and further behind academically, who are getting, who are isolated. Well, and kids aren't meant to be in isolation. They need to be with others, particularly with peers, and that's an important part of their development. And also importantly, we've seen a great decrease in reports of abuse and neglect that are most often observed by others outside of their home situation. And so when we talk about a child's health, we have to talk about the whole child. And it is important that they get back to school, and they do so in a full-time, meaningful way.
So that's your position. And what is the overall situation? Are most American students, putting, I guess, California aside because it's such a gigantic population, outside of California, are most students returning to school, physically returning?
Well, we're still gathering data on that, and of course it's changing daily, but my latest information suggests that about 50% of students will return to in-person school, at least in some form, whether that's a full-time day-to-day approach or whether they're cohorting and doing alternate days to lessen the density or whatever. But importantly also, there's all too many school districts that are not actually offering their families the opportunity for in-person school, but are only mandating that everything be done remotely. And of course, this continues to promote and cause problems for the kids for whom that just doesn't work, and for their parents as well.
What is their rationale? They don't have a science basis for this. Kids aren't getting sick and dying. What is their rationale?
No, the rationale is primarily articulated by the teachers' unions, and they're sowing fear unnecessarily, and they are also promoting their own very leftist agendas. I mean, we see in LA the teachers' union saying they're not going to return to the classroom and to in-person instruction or even consider it until it's, quote, safe, and, oh, by the way, until everybody has universal health care, until the police are defunded, and on and on and on and on, the whole list of leftist demands that they have as part of their agenda that have nothing to do with kids being in school and learning.
Yes, that's right. Well, this is coming to you, ladies and gentlemen, from the Secretary of Education of the United States. Just to remind you about the importance of the next election, if we have a Democratic administration, Secretary of Education will side with the teachers union. Just know that. Reason number 844-3227, not to vote Democrat. I want to remind you about the 3-week quick start for a phenomenal product. You know how phenomenal it is because you hear the ad so often. It means so many people are obviously supporting the product by buying it because it works. But you have to test it. They have a very fair way. Doesn't work in 3 weeks, probably won't work, and they give you a special price for 3-week supply. It's a 3-week quick start, $19.95 plus shipping, 800-500-8384, relieffactor.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
We got to the policeman, and the policeman I don't think recognized me, and as they came closer, they were shouting my name, and the crowd doubled to 60, and then it doubled again to 120. And as they were surrounding us, and it got closer and closer, and everybody kept pushing back, the policemen were forming a barricade with their bodies. I whispered to the policeman, they know who I am. You've got to get reinforcements. It's going to get worse. He called for reinforcements, but we didn't get any reinforcements. We waited, but the crowd was getting bigger and bigger and pushing in. They were yelling threats. They were trying to push the police over to get to me. They were grabbing at us. And it got worse and worse and worse. And then finally we decided to make a move. I said, we've got to move. If there's not going to be reinforcements, we have to try to get to the hotel, which was another block.
And then Senator Paul said something that was pretty profound about what he and his wife experienced last night outside the White House.
If the police are not there, if you defund the police, if we become Portland, if America becomes Portland, what's going to happen is people are going to be pummeled and kicked in the head and left senseless on the curb. That would have happened to us. I promise you, had we not had the D.C. police to support us, I mean, we are thankful that we have police, and we've got to wake up. We can't have the whole country. We can't have Joe Biden rule the country and have no police. I mean, we can't walk down the street in D.C. safely now.
What amazes me is that these demonstrators and violent people in the streets of America don't even realize how much damage they're doing to their chances of taking the White House. They don't even realize. I truly believe Americans are ready and are going to get this right on November the 3rd. This is what we're up against, and we can win.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Yeah, not shocked at all by the sort of grotesque display that was against the law. More super grossed out and really worried about the people who gathered there, who put their lives at risk to kind of squish together and support the president.
Well, and this is what you said.
Mika Brzezinski. She's super grossed out at the grotesque display she witnessed at the White House last night. I was there. My name's Sebastian Gorka. Let me tell you, Mika, what America is super grossed out about. We're super grossed out by the fact that people leaving that event were abused. White people, black people, elderly people.
People ask what they can do for this election. Here's an example. Go to 10for20.com and take the 10 for 20 pledge. You'll receive a link that will give you the most trusted voting information and tools you can use to become a part of one of the largest conservative get out the vote efforts ever. You'll be contacted by email and asked to send a link and message to 10 people you know who care about America, family, neighbors, church and work friends, and make sure they sign the pledge and get the information they need to vote in person or by mail. To join this army for freedom and save our country, go to 10for20.com and take the pledge. That's 10for20.com, the number 10, F-O-R, the number 20.com. Thank you for staying with me, Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education of America. So there are a number of battles going on. Well, I mean, you would know better than anyone how many battles are going on education. So is there any way the U.S. government, and there may not be, has a way to pressure places like the L.A. Teachers Union? You have a moral obligation to teach students in school. Is there anything you can do?
Well, President Trump and I have been working to promote school choice for families for whom their schools are not being responsive and are not opening. And there's an important bill that's been introduced in both chambers in a bipartisan fashion, mind you, Tim Scott's School Choice Now Act, and it would help provide relief to many families that are simply not having their needs met and addressing the issues for their children. I believe today more than ever before, parents across the country, many of whom have never even thought about school choice and what it could mean, are doing so now as we see families forming these learning pods or micro schools, more families homeschooling. I mean, they're taking matters into their own hands. But the reality is there are tons of resources that continue to flow into systems and buildings that are not responding to families' demands and needs. And so we've got to flip that equation and ensure that families ultimately have the resources to make the choices that are right for their kids and to get their kids learning in places and ways that are going to work for them.
So what should somebody listening do?
Contact your legislators, your federal senators and members of Congress, and urge them to support the School Choice Now Act to give parents the opportunity to choose the best education setting for their child.
Excellent. Listen, I can only say, as I told you in person, God bless you, because I divide good people among three groups: those who fight, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. You're in the first group. You're a fighter. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Dennis. It's a privilege to serve on behalf of kids and their futures, and I'll continue to do everything I can to ensure they have every opportunity possible.
Yes, I know you will. Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education of the U.S. That's an important bill. As I've said, the left is pro-choice on only one thing: abortion. There is no other thing that they allow you to choose. Well, maybe marijuana. They're pro-choice on marijuana. very dysfunctional. I don't understand how anybody aware of what the LA Teachers Union is doing, ruining your children by not having them come into class because they have a bunch of left-wing demands that have nothing to do with your children first, like defunding the police, universal health care. How did they get away with it? Because the LA Times agrees with them. That's why. And CNN agrees with them. So where are you going to learn about it? Talk radio, Wall Street Journal editorial pages, and many of the great websites that are not perverted by the left. Listen to this story. This is beyond belief. And now, well, you know what? I take that back. Nothing is beyond belief right now. And let's see, it is in Washington, D.C., the Wall Street Journal. A republic if you can keep it. Benjamin Franklin's 1787 quip about the government Americans would have is probably the most popular founding era wisdom still with us. Maybe not for long. As if to prove Franklin's insight about the tendency of republics to self-destruct, a District of Columbia panel has identified Benjamin Franklin, among other founders, as a person of concern and recommended his name be removed from Washington, D.C. property. The astonishing proposals come from the Washington, D.C. government committee formed by Mayor Muriel Bowser to re-examine the names of schools, statues, and parks in the wake of protests. The committee submitted its report Monday, and Ms. Bowser tweeted, quote, "I look forward to reviewing and advancing their recommendations." The committee says it hunted for historical figures, quote, "with key disqualifying histories, including participation in slavery, systemic racism, mistreatment of, or actions that suppressed equality for persons of color, women, and LGBTQ communities, and violation of the D.C. Human Rights Act." Wow. They have 1,330 properties named to be renamed in Washington, D.C.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. The recent unveiling of the Republican agenda for a second term gave much encouragement to many who need it. Defeat COVID, create jobs, disentangle from China, provide school choice, teach American exceptionalism unapologetically, defend the police as an institution, oppose human trafficking. These and other measures offer sanity, flourishing, and hope to an embattled country. No agenda can cover every issue. Two outstanding issues need platforming, however: religious liberty and abortion. The Trump administration has taken stands on both of these momentous matters and to good effect. In days ahead, though, supporters of religious liberty and the unerasable humanity of the unborn need more support, not less. Religious liberty, after all, is for this gloriously free society the first freedom. Among other righteous ends, it enables a diverse coalition of many voices to speak on behalf of the unborn, until the murderous abomination of abortion is a distant memory. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Burka.
Super personal for me. I mean, you know, my dad was a cop. He spent almost 20 years on the force, and on literally on his last day at the job, in 20 years, my dad never pulled his gun out of his holster. 20 years on the job, his last day on patrol, pulls a guy over in a car, walks up to the guy pulls out a gun, puts it in his face, pulls the trigger. The gun just did not go off. It misfired. The guy had a murder felony warrant out for his arrest. So there, but for the grace of God, go out. Look, here's one of the big problems.
And he was all right. He got arrested.
Oh, yeah. My dad, arrested the guy. Dad came home, never bothered to mention it. It's like, I think it was 20 years later. He goes, yeah!
Last day on the job.
I remember that time that guy almost shot me. So, my dad was a Korean War vet. He spent 18 months in combat. He was like, better people than you have tried to shoot me, brother. But this is one of the big challenges here that she really took on, because this, of course, got no attention, no press, no media,
no demonstrations.
And this is what the media is doing. They are normalizing violence, right? They are excusing this activity as either, well, this isn't really part of what we're doing, it's justified. And normalizing violence means that violence is normal. And so
it can be used as a tool.
And they're enabling these children and convincing them that what they are doing is just and correct.
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Chicago, Illinois. Frank. Hello, Frank.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Wish I could say the same.
Well, I'm well. The country isn't, but I don't say that every time.
I am a Chicago public school teacher, and today was our first day back as a staff, except we were remote. And we sat through almost 4 hours of the most nonsensical meetings I've ever had in my 25 years teaching. Nothing about teaching, nothing about learning. It was all about emotions and identity and ethnic identity, and it was. I tuned out. I mean, it was incredible.
Did anybody raise an objection?
We're not allowed to.
Meaning?
You can't. You can't. You raise an objection, you're vilified.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the one voice that does on occasion, and I get a lot of looks, and it's just
right.
I'm enduring it. I'm enduring it.
Right. Well, so I would simply I would say to you that my charge that vast numbers of public school teachers don't really care about students appears to be accurate.
I don't know if it's the teachers, because myself and my colleagues, I'm going to say for the most part, do care and care deeply about our students. I want to set my classes up and teach my kids, but the central office, the central administration, does everything contrary to that. Everything contrary to that.
I know that. Look, teachers' unions. Folks, whatever the left touches, it destroys. See it happen, the teaching is very painful. On a sort of bright side, because you know how deeply I'm committed to my religion and to you being committed to yours, I, by sheer, almost providential, I can't explain it otherwise, after 13 years of conducting the holiest services in Judaism, the high holy day services, for 300 to 400 people each year, I decided to video it professionally. And that will be up so you could watch it. To get information, go, what is it, Salem Live? SalemNow.com. Or just send me an email. That's better. I'll tell you. Send me an email.